Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. So the day has come, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am going to be pressure canning 12 packs of brats. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So as you can see here, I have a whole bunch of packs of brats. Let me go ahead and give you the story behind those because you know I like to tell stories. So here, a while back, my wife saw these brats on sale at Costco. And you're not going to believe me, but it's true. They were on sale for less than $3 per pack. And as you can see, each of these packs brings 2. And I believe there's 7 brats in each pack. Now, she called me and she said, hey, brats are on sale. And I'm like, how much? And she says, I think it was like $2.68 or something like that. And I'm like, and I said, per pack? That's really great. I thought it was per single pack. And she said, no, it's a double pack. I'm like, are you serious? So anyways, long story short, she bought a whole case. These have been in our freezer for a few months. We still have some more in our freezer. But I figured I would do this video to show you guys how I do it. And because I know we're not going to eat all of those brats within a year. And I know from previous experience that these come out great when you pressure. I'm going to go ahead and pressure can these in 2 different ways. One way is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and take the sausage out of the casing. I'm going to place it in a bowl, and then I'm going to cold pack that sausage into the jar and then pressure can it using the cold pack method. Well, both of these are going to be using the cold pack method. The other way is I'm going to go ahead and take these sausages and kind of like conform them to that shape and stuff them all the way to the bottom of the jar and put as many as I can in that jar that will allow me to have a gap between the lid and the meat of about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. And then this time I'm going to put a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of either chicken stock or beef stock in there to see if they'll keep a little more moisture in there and be more plump when we take them out of the jar. The ones that I showed you on the last video that I used using some of the pressure can sausages that I pressure canned like 5 years ago, they weren't dry. They were still very good. They tasted very good and they had good texture. It's just I've never tried this method before, and it's something that I want to try out, and it can't hurt. Either way, we'll be able to eat them, and they'll still taste good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see how many we can fit in here whole. I'm going to leave the casing in these. I'm just going to try to put them in there. And look at that. They fit perfect in there. We might even be able to put one standing up. So it looks like we're going to be able to fit 6 in each jar. Let's see if what happens if I press it down. Because I don't think it'll hurt if we press it down. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to fit a 7th one in there. So we really don't want to push it. We just want to make sure that we can put them in there. And then what I'm going to do is wait until I have them all packed. And then I'm going to put a little bit of beef broth in these. Okay. So now I'm going to do a little bit of math and see how many jars we can fill, putting 6 in each jar. What I'm going for today is going to try to do 2 cycles. Right? So each cycle in my pressure canner can do 7 jars. So I'm going to go for 14, see if we have enough brats to make 14 jars. So I'm going to see if I can fill up 7 jars like this, and then the rest of the jars that I fill up, it will be with the sausage just packed in there without the casing in it. And then if I have any empty spaces, then I'll just pressure can some beans. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there we go. That's 7 quarts. 7 quarts, 42 brats. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you just 1 quart what I'm going to do as far as the beef broth goes. Because I remember that when I opened my last jar of sausage that I had packed, the level of juices and fats went up about 3/4 of the way, and then about 1/4 of the meat that was in there, of the sausage that was in there, was kind of like not covered by any juice or fat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put about 1/4 of a container's worth of beef broth in there. I definitely don't want to overfill it. That right there looks like it's going to be about good. So you see that, ladies and gentlemen? It looks like about a half, but there's still some air that needs to be worked out of there. So I'm going to let this sit. Hopefully it'll work itself out. That way when it's done, I'm hoping that the fat and the broth will be up to this line, or will at least be above the sausages. Okay, so I'm going to do that to each one of these. I'm going to put them aside, get my lids ready, and go get my canner, and we're going to go with our first batch, and then I'll start working on decasing the rest of these so that we can pack the other jars for our second batch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so now that I have my jars ready, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean the top off, and then I'm going to use a little bit of vinegar to finish it off before I have my lids on there. Now, I always say this because a lot of people bring it up. Yes, I am using the new lids, and it's said that you don't have to warm them up anymore. I still warm them up. Why? Because it gives me a warm and fuzzy feeling inside, having them warmed up. All right, we may not need to do it, but it's the way I've always done it. I've just done it that way ever since, and it doesn't really hurt. For those of you that are new to canning, when you're pressure canning, you don't want to put your lid on really tight. So as you can see, I have or your ring on really tight. As you can see, I have my lid on nice and centered. So now I'm going to put my ring on. And all you want to do is just give it one quick snug. That's it. You don't want to put it on too tight because it can compromise your seal during the canning process. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me get my canner over here. I'll tell you how I'm going to do it, being that this is a cold pack method. You want to make sure that you do not put these jars into hot water. So let me get my canner, let me get some water in there, a little bit of vinegar as well, and then we'll take it from there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we're getting ready to put our jars in here. As you can see, I've already got a little bit of water in here. If you can see the water in there. My canner, which is the T-Fall 22 quart pressure canner / cooker, recommends that I use anywhere between 3/4 to 1 gallon of water. For those of you that are new to canning, you want to put a little bit of white vinegar in there to make sure that if there are any particulates in your water, that it will not fog up your jars. Now, if it does fog up your jars and give them like a milky texture on the outside, it's just as easy to wash them off after the processing is complete and the jars are all sealed, right? So it's not the end of the world, but to take away a little bit of that extra work that you have to do by not using the vinegar, I usually put about a 1/4 cup or so of vinegar in there. That should be enough there to keep the water from clouding up your jars. Now, I've only got about a 1/2 gallon of water in there, and I'm saving my last quart for when I have all my jars in there. So as you can see, when I'm holding my jars, I'm holding them straight up and down. I'm not tilting them or tipping them. I really don't want to get anything in between that seal. I don't want to get any juices or any meat or any fat or anything like that in between those seals, because that can help to compromise your seal during the canning process. And of course, like I told you, make sure that if you're using the cold pack method, that you are placing your jars into a canner that has cold water and not hot water. If you were doing the hot pack method, you would be placing your jars into a canner that had hot water, all right? Because you don't want to introduce a cold jar to hot water, and you don't want to introduce a hot jar into cold water. And now when I look down there, I can see that it's only about a 1/4 of the way up to the jar. All right, the water level is only about a 1/4 of the way up. It's only about up to here. Right, I want to get it about halfway or so. So I've got my other quart of water handy. I'm going to go ahead and pour it in there. I've got about half of it in there now, and it looks like 3/4 of a gallon is the perfect amount of water to put in there. Now, for those of you that haven't seen the canner that I used before, let me give you a quick tour. This is the T-Fall 22 quart canner, pressure canner / cooker. I like to call this a mechanical weight because it's not meant to take off and on. It's supposed to stay in place. And as you can see, this has a open position, which means that if you leave it right here, when it starts steaming, the steam is going to come out of here and let you know that it's steaming. The number 1 indicates a 5-pound pressure. Number 2, 10. Number 3, 15. Where I live, for the altitude that I'm in, I only need 10 pounds of pressure. However, I got into the habit a long time ago of always using number 3, the highest, just as a precautionary safety method. All right, so I'm going to turn this on now. I'm going to let the steam come up. And when the steam's running out, I'm going to show you guys what it looks like for those of you that are not familiar with it. So ladies and gentlemen, when you see that steam is coming out of here at a rapid pace, what we're going to do is we're going to turn our timer on to 10 minutes. And once the 10 minutes is up, we're going to go ahead and put our weight on number 3 in my case. All right? So once the 10 minutes is up of this steam coming up in a rapid manner like that, we're going to go ahead and put on our weight, and we're going to start to wait for our pressure to go up. Okay, my timer went off, ladies and gentlemen, so now all we're going to do is I'm going to put this on number 3. And this is pretty important as well. You're going to make sure that the pressure comes up to the pressure that you need it to be for your location. Once that happens, once this reaches 10 pounds for me, 10 pounds or over, I'm going to put my timer on for 10 minutes again. Once that 10 minutes is up, I'm going to double check, make sure that my pressure is above 10 pounds, and then I'll start my timer for 90 minutes. Once the timer goes off after 90 minutes, all you do is turn off your burner and let this sit until it depressurizes naturally, meaning that you're not going to assist it in the depressurization process. Right? You can run into problems when you do that, when you try to let pressure out manually, because it can compromise the seal in your jars. So we'll be back when this is done. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to start recording. I'm going to go ahead and get these guys undressed. All right? While our pressure cooker comes up to temperature, I'm going to get these guys undressed and in this bowl so that we can start stuffing them into the jars. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so as you can see, I've got all of my sausage decased. We'll see if this fits all 7 jars. However, if it doesn't fill up all of the jars, what I'll do is I'll end up filling one of those jars with something else. More than likely it'll be some black beans, but we'll see if it fills it first. Before I continue, I wanted to show you something real quick that I don't run into very often. Doesn't happen a lot, but it is something that you want to look for whenever you're handling new jars or new lids and rings. I got a ring from one of those new jars that I opened that's dented. Now, normally I would use this ring if I was like dry canning, no problem. But I will not risk using a ring like this when I'm pressure canning. Okay, because you can see the dent goes all the way through, and I don't want that to obstruct my seal in any way. So I'll put this in my junk drawer, and I'll use it later on whenever I do some dry canning. I'll make sure to use this one. That way it gets used, and I can use a different one that's good for actual pressure canning or water bathing. But whenever you buy your new lids, rings, or even jars, check them out and make sure that they are in good shape and that they're not like this. Right? So let's go ahead and start filling our jars. I'm going to go ahead and get my funnel. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so as you can see, I was able to fill 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 jars. And since we're experimenting today, I'm going to take this half jar right there. Instead of just getting a pint and transferring it over, I'm going to put the rest of this stock in there and see what happens. I'm going to leave it just like that. I'm going to let that stock run out, and I'm going to see what happens with that jar. Never really pressure canned a jar that wasn't all the way full, you know, to the inch line. or like this. So I'm curious to see what happens, and we will see. So what I'm going to do with this jar here, this empty one, in order to fill it up, to fill up my canner, is I'm going to go ahead and process this jar using black beans. Alright, so I've got about 1¼ cups of dry black beans in there. And I think that will be just enough to give us a really nice jar of black beans. Now all I do, ladies and gentlemen, when I process my black beans, a lot of people ask me, do I pre-soak them? I do not. I never have, and they've always come out really good. All I do is I put a teaspoon of salt in there, then fill it up with water. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have these all filled and ready to go, I'm just going to go ahead and add my oxygen absorber to these, seal them up really good, leave them on the counter overnight, and make sure that the jar's got a seal, and then they're good to go into the pantry. I'm just kidding, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not putting any oxygen absorbers in here. Alright, that was just a joke for you newbies. What I'm going to do now, since I'm waiting for my canner to get done with the first batch, I'm just going to put a towel over this. I'm not going to put the lids on or anything like that because my lids are already in my pot so that they can get warmed up. So I'm just going to put a towel over this. When my canner is done with the first batch, then we'll get these ready to go into the canner and go through the same process that we're going through right now. We are done with our first batch, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see, our pressure is now down below 5, but I still have my mechanical weight set where I had it set during the processing time. I will not touch this until that pressure is completely at 0. And then we'll be able to take the jars out of the pressure canner and start our second batch. We are ready to take them out of the pressure canner, ladies and gentlemen. It's been sitting here for a few minutes after we turned the burner off and it came down to 0 pressure. So now we're going to go ahead and make sure that there is no pressure in there. And there isn't. Now I'm going to open the lid and then I'm going to put them in the cardboard box I have here, and then I'll show you what they look like. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I took them all out of the canner, and I know you're not getting a very good picture here, but I just want to go ahead and show you a couple of them. See that? They are still processing, okay? Now this is information that I'm putting out to any of you that are new to canning. Once you take them out of the canner, you put them here and you don't touch them for at least 16 to 24 hours. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and leave these here. The next time that you will see these is going to be along with the other batch that I can. And then when they are all ready, I'm going to go ahead and show you what they all look like. Now the reason why it's important for you not to touch these is because they are still processing. The seals have not completed sealing yet, so you don't want to disturb them, and you don't want to run a risk of having any of these jars crack on you. When you place them, wherever it is that you're going to place them, try for there not to be any cold drafts passing by, and try not to introduce any kind of a wide temperature change to any of these. That way they can finish processing properly and you'll have a successful batch. All right? So I'm not going to show you me processing the other batch because I'm going to be doing the exact same thing. But when we come back, you're going to be able to see all of the jars laid out on the counter after they've completed processing and sealing. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually been more than 24 hours since these were done processing. It just happens that the 24-hour mark fell right when I got home from work. And then I ended up doing a live stream yesterday. And I let them sit here overnight again. So it's been like 36 hours, really. Which is great. Because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Every single jar kept its seal. And they all look really good. So I want to show you what the sausage that I uncased, or that I took the casing off of, looks like. And it came out right. And as you can see, we still lost a little bit of liquid, which is fine. It's not going to hurt it. But I was trying to see if we can keep the liquids up there, but we still lost some liquids. And then here's the ones that are still cased in their casing. Same thing with these. They lost a little bit of liquid, but they are fine. These actually look really, really good. And let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't tell you this before, but they smell really good when they were processing. This is the one that was only about half full or so, that I ended up adding the extra beef stock to. And it looks like it did well as well. It's sealed really well. Everything in there looks good. And I had a successful 2-batch pressure canning session, I guess you can call it. When you do 2 batches and try to get it done in an afternoon, sometimes it makes for a long night. But let me show you what the beans look like, because they look really nice as well. And those are the black beans right there. And they came out really nice. So right there, if you can see how many beans are in there, that's about 1 1/4 to 1 1/3 cups of black beans that I put in there. And as you can see, the black beans go up to about here. The rest is liquid. So there was plenty of space for the black beans to expand in there and not mess up your seal. So just in case any of you are wondering how many beans to put in a quart jar, I think I did a video a while back where I used 1 1/2 cups, and it wasn't so much that it messed up the seal on it, but it was pretty tight in there. So I went down to like 1 1/4 to 1 1/3 cups, and it seems that that's the perfect amount. At least for me it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so thank you very much for hanging in here for this process. I really hope that this helps those of you that are just starting out, and it gives you the confidence and motivation to actually do it yourself. This method that I use, the cold pack method, does not have to be just with sausage. You could do this with chicken, you can do this with beef, you can do this with pork. I've never done it with fish like salmon or anything like that, but I would assume that we would get the same results if I did that. But I can't say for sure because I've never done that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so thank you very much for joining in. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for spending a few minutes of your day here with me whenever I put up a video. I hope you have a great weekend. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I am out.